The vibe was going strong at Club Rol-Lexx, a Miami strip club, when two black men stepped out to go to their pickup in the parking lot. They were sitting there in the two front seats and approached by a person that, in hindsight, was the biggest danger that night could present. This man was later diagnosed with a myriad of uncontrolled mental health illnesses, including impulse control disorder, antisocial personality disorder, unspecified schizophrenia spectrum, and other psychotic disorders. He was also carrying a gun. But that wasn't the most frightening thing about him. No, the most frightening thing was that this man was actually given the power to carry that gun and was actually hired by the strip club to be there. He was the armed guard on duty that night, and he was significantly less mentally stable or capable than the two men that he held at gunpoint. Welcome to 10-Minute Murder, brief and bingeable true crime. I'm Joe, the host, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Wait, what? That's the wrong podcast. Apparently that's a different thing. We talk about murder here, so let's do that. Just a moment before we do that, though, if you are new to listening to 10-Minute Murder, first of all, I appreciate you checking it out. Make sure that if you want to listen to more episodes, you subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening right now. And this goes for everyone, new listener or OG listener. Connect with 10-Minute Murder on social media, and you can see the visuals that go along with the episodes. Sometimes it's hard to dig up pictures or videos from these stories. Like in the previous episode, cameras were just barely a thing at that time, so it was a little bit hard. It was mostly illustrations. Other times, there are so many photos that I post, I feel like I might go overboard a little bit. But in order to see it, like I said, you need to find 10-Minute Murder on Facebook and Instagram. And by the way, you can also contact me through those platforms as well. All right, now to today's story. Lucas Kendall was working as an armed security guard at Club Rol-Lexx on June 1st, 2012, when he saw Kawan Bird and Michael Smathers sitting in a pickup truck in the parking lot. And why were Kawan Bird and Michael Smathers sitting in their car? Michael said that he and Kawan were taking a break from watching a basketball game inside the club when they encountered Kendall outside. As for why Lucas even approached the two in their vehicle in the first place, he tried to articulate later, saying, quote, he thought they were rolling marijuana, and he approached the car. When Lucas was nearing the truck, he said, quote, one of the men shouted that he was going to kill me. And then he reported later that both car doors swung open and he feared for his life, that he was in danger, and he believed that one of the men had a weapon. As to this exact moment, Michael said, we see the security and he sees us. There were no words even exchanged. We never said a word to Lucas at all. The only thing I remember was opening my car door and Lucas telling me to put my hands up. After that, I was shot. Because Lucas said he was in fear for his life, he fired at least 12 shots, 8 times at Kawan Bird, including at least 4 in his back as he crawled under the truck. 4 shots were fired at Michael by Lucas, rendering him paralyzed, but alive. In the end, no weapon was found on the two men or in their vehicle. Absolutely none. When this case went to court, Lucas Kendall chose to defend himself with help from an attorney in the charges of second-degree murder with a firearm and attempted second-degree murder. During a court hearing to determine Lucas Kendall's competency, whether he was sane enough to even stand trial in the first place, there was a discussion about where to keep him while this was evaluated. The attorney argued that his client was losing competency or decompensating. He didn't want him to return to jail but stay in the hospital.
Well, the first thing we needed to address is he's been restored to competency.
Correct, Your Honor. There are 2 evaluations from Dr. Luis Quintana and Dr. Richardson. They both find that he's competent.
And then the issue is that you want him housed where?
At the same facility he's been housed.
In order to prevent him from decompensating?
Yes, Your Honor. He eventually decompensated to the point where he was sitting in a fetal position, naked, not eating, and not interacting with any human being.
While this was being mulled over in court, the family of the man Lucas killed sat silently, watching, until their emotions boiled over. Kawan Bird's father stood up.
Yeah, but my son is dead, man. My son is dead. He needs to go to prison. He don't need to be laying no mental hospital. He needs to go to prison, man. Come on, church. He want to play crazy. He wasn't crazy when he murdered my son, man. He wasn't crazy then, but he crazy now. All of a sudden he crazy now. You want to lay in a mental hospital? You don't murder my son, man, for nothing. When he was trying to get away from you was trying to get away from you, man. And you kept shooting him while his back was under the truck. You kept shooting him, man. You kept shooting him. And his back was tight to you, man. He was trying to get away from you. And you murdered him, man, like you murdered him, man.
That outburst caused him to be escorted from the room. During the trial, with a portion of his dark, shoulder-length hair pulled back into a little ponytail, at one point, Lucas defended himself, trying to articulate to the jury, quote, "The reason the evidence was fabricated is because I'm white. The subjects I shot were African American. I can prove that. What they're not allowing me to tell you is that I was arrested because of the George Zimmerman shooting." He also claimed that his shooting was justified under the stand your ground law.
So the trajectory coming from outside the vehicle would have to come in that downward.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Lucas Kendall's line of defense didn't hold up to the jury's eyes, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a 25-year minimum mandatory for the second-degree murder of Kawan Bird, and 30 years with a 25-year minimum mandatory term for the attempted second-degree murder of Michael Smathers. Michael Smathers remains paralyzed and is now largely confined to his home, though he is grateful to be alive and Lucas Kendall in jail. That's 10-Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. Thank you for listening. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, if you are new to listening to 10-Minute Murder, make sure you hit subscribe wherever you're listening right now. It makes it easier to go back and listen to previous episodes of 10-Minute Murder, and then you'll get all the episodes as they come out, and as soon as they come out. Also connect with 10-Minute Murder on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all the places. YouTube, there's a lot of places to connect. There are links that you can find in the show notes of this episode, or just as easily, wherever you're trying to find the podcast, just type 10-Minute Murder into the search bar and it's going to pop right up. The number 10-Minute Murder, and there it'll be. If wherever you're listening, it allows for ratings and reviews, I hope that you will give me a 5-star rating and review. That helps the podcast grow and reach more and more people. But just as good as that, you can let other people know about the podcast. If you've got friends, family, coworkers, anyone in your life that you encounter and you think they may like 10-Minute Murder, they might listening to short stories about true crime, specifically about murders, then let them know about it. Thank you for listening to 10-Minute Murder. Be safe and make good choices.
10-minute murder. 10-minute murder. 10-minute murder. 10-minute